Hey guys, what's happening? Blue Riding on here, and today we're going to be talking about the Sharingan, which is one of Naruto's coolest abilities and one of my personal favorites. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, the Sharingan, the dojutsu of the Uchiha clan, and one of the most interesting and unique abilities in all of Naruto. We're first shown this OP little ability in manga chapter 12 when Kakashi pulls it out in the fight against Zabuza. And the first use of the Sharingan is honestly electric and completely turns the tide of the battle in Kakashi's favor. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we start talking about its capabilities, we should first break down the basics. Sharingan literally translates to, in English, copy wheel eye. Though this doesn't really do an amazing job of explaining all that the Sharingan is capable of. Now, before I get into the nitty gritty of the Sharingan's capabilities and what abilities it can grant its users, I first want to take a moment to talk about its acquisition. Now, under normal circumstances at least, the Sharingan can only be acquired by Uchiha clan members because of the direct descendancy from Indra Otsutsuki and by extension the Sage of Six Paths. To acquire a Sharingan, an Uchiha clan member must undergo an intense emotion, though it doesn't really seem to matter what this emotion is. It could be the determination to protect one's friends, the sadness of the loss of a loved one, happiness, anger, and everything in between. Regardless, once the Uchiha clan member feels this emotion, a special chakra will be brewed in their brain, which will reflect itself in the optic nerve, manifesting in the Sharingan. Now that's all a little bit of complicated talk. Basically, once the Uchiha clan feels this emotion, if it's substantial enough, their eyes will turn into the Sharingan. For example, Sasuke awakened his Sharingan where his entire clan was slaughtered. Obito awakened his Sharingan because of the immense determination he felt to protect Rin and Kakashi. Sarada, on the other hand, awakened her Sharingan because of the happiness she felt that she might finally be able to meet her father. And Itachi awakened his Sharingan when Obito killed his team. Now, under rare circumstances, it really is possible for non-Uchiha to gain access to the Sharingan, but this is only possible through an eye transplant, and this is heavily discouraged because it drastically increases the amount of chakra required to operate the Sharingan. If Kakashi is any standard to go by, he used the Sharingan for only one fight. Granted, this was a quite hard and long fight, but he only used it for one fight against Zabuza, and he was bedridden for over a week. So it's no joke the amount of chakra that a Sharingan can take. Anyways, with the acquisition out of the way, we can start talking about the Sharingan's abilities. Now, the Sharingan's abilities can be broadly divided into one of two categories, the Eye of Insight and the Eye of Hypnotism. And unlike what the name implies, these abilities aren't, related to only one eye or the other. Alright, so first let's have a crack at the Eye of Insight. Now, the Eye of Insight's main purpose is to augment the user's vision to greatly increase their sensory and perceptive capabilities. It basically gives a great boost to their visual capabilities in general. It allows them to do things like see chakra in a visible form and distinguish between different types of chakra by differences in color, and also find out distortions in chakra and see these distortions are brought by inward causes or outward causes like genjutsu. In addition to this, it basically allows the user to see more. And this goes beyond just increasing the reflexes and reaction time, but to the point where they can like read an opponent's next movements through muscle movements and tensions, perceive and record incredibly small movements like pencil movements, and everything in between. Honestly, one of the best displays of this, the visual boost that a Sharingan can give, is when Madara Uchiha is revived. Madara Uchiha, one man took on an army of shinobi and defeats half of them with taijutsu alone. And this is only possible because of his Sharingan and the visual boost it provides him. Basically, the visual boost provided by the Eye of Insight is no joke. Now, one of the Eye of Insight's more interesting capabilities, and it's basically the Sharingan's namesake, is the ability to copy jutsu. And this stems from the user's ability to see chakra. So there are some restrictions on this ability, but basically the way it works is the user has to have seen the jutsu at least once with their Sharingan active, and the user must be physically capable of performing the jutsu. So jutsu like Kekkei Genkai or nature transmissions that the user has not yet mastered are out the window. But the way it works, it basically gives them the Sharingan gives them an understanding of how the jutsu works, but it's still their job to perform the jutsu itself. One of the most like amazing displays of this is when Kakashi copies Zabuza's water dragon jutsu while Zabuza was performing. Another notable feat of jutsu being copied with the Sharingan is when Sasuke, with an incomplete pair of Sharingan, mind you, was able to match Rock Lee's natural taijutsu prowess only after being victim to it and seeing it once with the Sharingan. Anyway, so that's the Eye of Insight's capabilities out of the way. Now we can take a moment to talk about the Eye of Hypnotism. So the Eye of Hypnotism's main focus is Genjutsu, and the Sharingan is very infamous for Genjutsu. So Sharingan Genjutsu sort of falls on a spectrum. On one side you got very subtle, very delicate Genjutsu, and on the other side you got very OP hacks Genjutsu, which allows you to completely control a being or creature. So, for example, an example of a subtle sort of delicate genjutsu would be something like when Kakashi used his Sharingan to sort of control, like delicately control Zabuza's movements without Zabuza even knowing. And an example for OP hacking genjutsu is when Obito and Madara on separate occasions completely control the nine-tailed fox. Like it controls all of its actions. So Sharingan Genjutsu is very infamous and as I said it falls on a spectrum. Okay, so now that we have the basic abilities of the Sharingan out of the way, we can take a moment to talk about the Sharingan's evolution. Now, as I've alluded to from the beginning of this video, the Sharingan sort of has different stages and it has to complete the stages before evolving to its final state. Now, the way to track a Sharingan's evolution is actually pretty simple. It's based on the number of Tomo it has. And in this way, there are three types of Sharingan. The one Tomo Sharingan, the two Tomo Sharingan, and the three Tomo Sharingan. And the number of Tomo basically are proportional to the Sharingan's power. The three Tomo Sharingan is more powerful than the two Tomo Sharingan, and the two Tomo Sharingan is more powerful than the one Tomo Sharingan, and so on and so forth. When a Uchiha clan member freshly unlocks their Sharingan, it's usually the one Tomo Sharingan, as we see with Sarada and Sasuke. But sometimes an Uchiha clan member can directly unlock a two Tomo Sharingan, like Obito, or and this is sort of a special case. I'm talking about Hagoromo, the Sage Six Paths. But when he unlocked the Sharingan, he jumped straight to the three Tomo, like the final stage of Sharingan. So it's not necessary that you have to go through all the stages. Now, as far as how you have to move through these stages, it's quite simple but incredibly time consuming. It's only through repeated reuse and practice can you evolve your Sharingan completely. Now, all the abilities I've mentioned are accessible at all stages of the Sharingan 1, 2, 3 Tomo, but they vary in finesse and power and etc. etc. You can copy Jutsu with the 1 Tomo or 3 Tomo Sharingan, but it's much more potent when you use it in the 3 Tomo Sharingan. So I've been talking about some of the base Sharingan's capabilities, but these capabilities pale in comparison to the base Sharingan's boss capabilities, like the strongest capabilities. And these are Izanagi and Izanami. So first off, they both are genjutsu, but they are super powerful genjutsu and easily some of the base Sharingan's most powerful abilities. So first let's break down Izanagi. Now, Izanagi is often called the most powerful genjutsu that you can cast on yourself. And as I just said, it's quite different from other genjutsu because you cast it on yourself as opposed to someone else. But don't let this fool you. Izanagi is like something else, honestly. Its main purpose is to bridge the gap between illusion and reality and basically allows the user to rewrite reality as they please. So, for example, during a battle, if they sustain any damage or outright die, as long as they activated Izanagi before, they can simply come back to life unscathed, effectively rewriting reality. Like, Danzo uses this repeatedly in the fight against Sasuke, and is the only reason he stays alive. You can also set Izanagi to go off at specific times or under specific circumstances. Like when Madara set it off to go at the time of his death, and after Hashirama killed him, he came back to life and didn't just, die. As for Izanami, the specifics are a bit more complex. So don't forgive me if I don't do an amazing job of explaining them. I do plan to do separate video for each of them. But the main point of it is this one is something that you do cast on your opponent and it traps your opponent in an temporal loop. So the way Itachi said that works is you basically create a series of moments and record what you and your opponent are feeling in those moments, right? Then you like during the fight sort of replicate one of the first moments and you trap them in a loop. Point is, you this it's a lot of setup necessary for Izanami, but when you do get it to work, you don't the victim gets trapped in a temporal loop and they don't like for example when you use this against Kabuto, he was blind and deaf. So that's how it works. You don't need to make eye contact for it to work. And as I said, this temporal loop happens within the victim's mind. So his body remains completely immobile and at the disposal of the user. Now, as for how to get out of Izanami, well, there's actually a defense mechanism built into the Genjutsu, which basically means that you have to, find yourself or take a closer look at who you are. It's basically meant for people who haven't really found themselves or aren't really doing great in life. So it wouldn't work on someone pure of heart like Naruto, but I also speculate it wouldn't work on Madara because he knows who he is and he's already found himself. So it's extremely situational and extremely hard to set up, but when you get Izanami to work, it can be really powerful. Now, as powerful as these genjutsu are, they do come at a pretty high cost. Not only do I presume they take up a lot of chakra, but the user will permanently lose sight in one of the eyes. Any eye he uses to cast the genjutsu. So, if I use Izanagi or Izanami, that person will immediately lose sight in one of his eyes and immediately lose access to all the Sharingan's capabilities, which is really a shame because of all the other cool abilities that Sharingan grants the user. Granted, it is possible under rare circumstances to restore these blinded eyes, but the specifications on how to use and restrictions are pretty tight. And the only one known to have done this is Madara Uchiha. So don't bank on it basically. Anyways, the cost for Izanagi and Izanami is really high, and that's why we don't really see it used too much throughout the series. Danzo was actually able to bypass this cost by having his 10,000 Sharingans in his arms. But either way, whenever someone uses Izanagi or Izanami, they will go blind. Well, that about wraps up this video and everything I hope to accomplish. Hopefully, you've got a better understanding of the Sharingan in general right now and how it works. Now, one thing before we end, I mentioned during the evolution of the Sharingan that the Three Tomo Sharingan was sort of the final evolution of the Sharingan. Well, that's not entirely true. There does exist a fourth evolution of the Sharingan, which is super powerful and only a handful of Uchiha possess, and that is the Mangekyo Sharingan. I will be covering that in a completely separate video coming up after that one. After this one, sorry. But anyways, as for now, thanks for watching. Please leave a like or subscribe. Your support is definitely appreciated. And feel free to leave a comment below if you want me to talk about other anime besides Naruto, like Dragon Ball Z, Fairy Tail, My Hero Academia, Detective Conan, or anything you really want. I'd definitely be open to it. And I love hearing you guys' feedback. Anyways, that's all for me today. Blue Riding out. 그 손을 내밀어줘 save me, save me.